I think the best thing you could do as a guy trying to get really good at brisket is the following. I think what we need to do as we start to come to peace with why is my barbecue not as good as the restaurants? Well, okay, they got the reps, they got the equipment. Now let's touch systems and processes. You have got to stop changing your process every time you cook a brisket. Part of the gap that restaurants have from us backyard guys is that they're not out there deviating. One of the biggest mistakes I see guys make that is keeping them from closing the gap between restaurant quality and backyard quality is the lack of knowledge behind what's happening with their temperatures over a prolonged period of time. Like, I'll give you an example. Amir with Redbird Barbecue. Bro's not been cooking barbecue for 20 years. Bro is one of the best pit masters on planet Earth. Barbecue YouTube. We're back with another one, another podcast. I'm not gonna do a super long intro, frankly, because I got a lot to talk about. The last one was nearly 2 hours, and if you remember on the last podcast, it got a little spicy. I'm not gonna say controversial, but it got a little spicy. I touched on a lot of topics. In this podcast, I would like to we'll go as in depth, but it's more topical, and so I need to move through it. So I don't really desire to have a long intro. I'll say this though, while we're in the intro. First, if you're new here, know this. I don't ask new people for anything. I don't ask you to subscribe. I don't ask for anything. I just ask that you enjoy the content. But what I'll tell you for the purpose of this podcast, I'm not going to try to convince you to stay around at all. So if that statement in and of itself rubbed you the wrong way, then probably not the space for you. However, if you do hang around, I just want you to know I'm not going to solicit you for anything. A subscription, it's earned, it's not given. Now, if it's not your first time here, come on, family. You already know what it is. Welcome back. I don't have to explain anything to you, because if it weren't for you, Frisbee wouldn't be, I wouldn't have this community to hang out with. So that's that. Let's jump into it. There's a lot of topics we got to hit, but as you saw, likely in the thumbnail and or the title, I'm going to call this something to the effect of like, why your barbecue isn't as good as the restaurants. And that's an important topic to me because of a few reasons that we'll get into. Of course, there'll be, as always, there'll be some additional topics we'll touch on, but we'll kick it off with that. That's going to be the Northern Star to set the tone for this discussion here. But what I will say is, this is the last thing I'm going to say before we jump right into topic number one, which is why your barbecue is not like the restaurants, is the following. The last podcast that I did, I told you guys, I don't know if folks want me to get on camera and go into barbecue Nerdville for an hour or 2 hours about barbecue. I have no idea. So I'm going to do this one, which was the last one. And based on the interaction, mostly like based on the comments, the feedback, is whether I'll do another one or not. And well, you guys blew it out of the water. Like, there's so many comments, so many likes, so many great discussions. I couldn't not do another one. Couldn't not? That's a double negative. I had to do another one. And the same goes for this. I am not one of these guys that's like, comment on my video just for the sake of saying that. Because like I said in the last podcast, most people do that because they just want you to boost the algorithm. I genuinely have no meter. I have no thermometer for if these podcasts are worth my time and your time, unless you guys drop in the comments and just say anything. So please do that. Like, just let me know if this is something you're liking. Whether you're responding to any of the topics or whatever, I don't care what you say. Just please. The next podcast will be solely dependent on the interaction of this podcast. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Now, why your barbecue is not as good as the restaurants. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because For most of my backyard barbecue life, like before I had a 1,000-gallon smoker or a 500-gallon smoker or had a YouTube channel or any of that stuff, I was just a lone guy in the backyard trying to learn this barbecue thing. I, for the life of me, could not figure out why my brisket wasn't looking like the restaurants, wasn't tasting like the restaurants, while my lean wasn't cooking like the leans of the restaurants and all that stuff. And it was really bugging me. It was bothering me. And what I came to realize was, I came to realize a few things. One, if you're one of these guys that's like, if you parade around and tell people that you cook a better brisket than Aaron Franklin's or name the restaurant, to you I say, please stop doing that. Please. Dude, it is not a badge of honor. It is not a badge of honor for you to cook a better brisket than Aaron Franklin, contrary to what most people might think. That might be a controversial statement. I don't know. But you don't get an award, a brownie point, or a star for cooking a better brisket than Aaron Franklin. Why? Because in my opinion, you should. You should cook a better brisket than Aaron Franklin because you're cooking one brisket, dude. You're cooking a brisket that if you're doing it right, you're babying the brisket. And if you're alone, I say lone, if you're a backyard warrior, then you're not making hundreds of brisket and hundreds of slabs of ribs and hundreds of lengths of sausage and sides and running a business and blah, blah, blah. You're not doing all that. So my first thing that I have to say, so we can just get it out of the way, is that because I run a YouTube channel, I feel some kind of onus to help shape the royal barbecue community. Now, keep in mind, I try to be a humble guy. At least I think I'm humble. And so I say this to tell you, I'm one little grain of sand on the entire barbecue beach. I'm a small fish in a big sea. But I do feel an onus to help. Police isn't the right word because we're all grown people. But I will say if I find something that rubs me the wrong way, well, I used the last podcast to voice that. So I guess we'll keep that trend. So I can't touch on this topic without saying that. If you are that guy, don't be that guy. Do not be the guy that's parading around telling people your barbecue is better than the restaurants, because it should be, because you're not running a restaurant. Now, that person aside, the rest of us who are able to look in the mirror and say the compliments of my friends and family is not doing it. Maybe it used to do it. It's not anymore. I don't really care what my family says because they're my family. I care what the potential that I have. Like, I care about my potential. And I know that my brisket it's not there. It's lacking something. So let's unpack this. And as I said on the last podcast, I'll say it again. To my right is my sound and audio. It's my audio and my visuals. So if I look over to my right, I'm dealing with that. And then right here, I got my phone. I got an outline. So I'm just trying to keep us on the same tracks. Now, I have some bullet points. Let's work through the bullet points. Why your barbecue isn't as good as the restaurants. Reps, equipment, systems and processes. That's a big one. Backyard variables I'll touch on. I'm just reading the bullets for you so you can have an outline in your head of how we'll unpack this. And then the true gap for me, in my opinion, between backyard guys like us and the restaurants is fire management. So let's start to step into this topic. At the restaurants, they have scale. We all know that. They have reps. The reps, or the lack thereof, I think, is one of the biggest gaps between what a backyard guy is doing and what a restaurant is doing. Yeah, there's equipment and, fancy smokers and all that stuff, which I'll get into here in a second. But I think before you even get to that, you have to account for the reps that they have. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you that one of the most important things that I did to bridge the gap of the lack of reps. And when I tell it to you, I want you to know it's one of those things that has the propensity to go in one ear and out the other. And if you let it do that, you're going to miss saving yourself years of barbecue learning. So just know that. Before we touch on that, I want to give you an illustration of the reps. When I was at Style Switch Barbecue, which is in Austin, as many of you know, I filmed a documentary there. And while I was filming the documentary, I had my pitmaster hat on for sure, meaning I was looking around and I was taking it all in and all that stuff. But the most of what I was doing was trying to make a mini film. So I had my cinematography filmmaker hat on, and so I wasn't able to be fully immersed in the experience like I would be if I was just there, no cameras, just whatever. I say that because when I was there, you can see in the film, but I saw the sheer amount of protein that they were preparing on a daily basis. It's insane. And also Style Switch, unlike a lot of Texas barbecue joints, they're open for lunch and dinner. I mean, they're open all day. Cooking it the same way as Franklin does. I mean, not the same exact process, but I'm saying on offsets with live fire, no ovens. They're cooking it the real way. They're just serving it for many more hours after most barbecue restaurants close. So they are really turning some protein. When I got home and I got into the edit, I was able to kind of debrief, take a deep breath, get into the edit. And as I was cutting a bunch of footage up, I had hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of footage. As I was cutting the footage up, my jaw was just dropped the whole time because I didn't appreciate the amount of protein that they were preparing on a daily basis. It's insane. And so the first thing that I want to get across is just the reps, guys. It's so important. Back in the day, when I was when I didn't have a YouTube channel and I didn't have big smokers and did large events and all that stuff, I struggled a lot. I really did because, I was lucky, especially way back in the day when, man, money was tough. My wife and I were just trying to figure out marriage and life and family stuff. And barbecue wasn't at the forefront at the time. It was still a passion of mine, but man, life can kick you in the nuts. And during that time, I was not cooking briskets often. And so what I would find happening is I would trim a brisket and I'd botch it. I'm like, well, there's that. And I'd smoke it and I'd eat it. And great. Okay. And then it'd be, 3, 4, 5 weeks, maybe even a couple months until I do the next brisket. And so I'd do the next brisket and I still had the freaking trauma from the last brisket in my head, and I'd botch that one. And then I do another one, and then maybe that one was a little better. But my point is like there was so much time between from brisket to brisket that I wasn't able to get the consistency. And so what I started to implement, and this is the tip. If you don't get anything from this entire video, get this. If I could go back and talk to my old self, or my younger self, if I can go back, I would say the following. I would say this: Marcus, I know that you want to be a really good pitmaster. I know you want to be the best that you can be at this barbecue thing. I get that. And I know money's tight. And I know you don't have access to briskets all the time and all this stuff. Here's what I would say, which is what I'm going to say to you. Record yourself filming your brisket trims sooner. That's what I go back and tell myself. Because what I realized, botched brisket after botched brisket after botched brisket, was the brisket trim is so important. It is so important that I bridged the gap between restaurant and backyard from a reps perspective by recording one video of me trimming a brisket, and then I'd watch it over and over and over again. I don't think you guys realize well, first off, I didn't realize how the brain learns. The act of watching yourself doing something over and over again it just imprints into your head almost as if you were doing it live. Now, I don't know the science behind all that. I just know that's what happened to me, to the point where I like one of the videos I recorded, I scalped the brisket real bad. And I would watch that over and over and over again until I knew in the video at the exact moment I was about to scalp it. Now, in hindsight, what I know is that you can become so accustomed to brisket trims, you can almost see a scalp before it happens. There's times where I will watch a YouTube video of a guy trimming a brisket and he'll scalp it, which is fine. We all scalp briskets. It's life. But I'll notice in my subconscious, I'm like, here comes the scalp. It's just like I almost know it. And I now know that's from the repetition, just constantly trimming briskets these days. But back then, I was getting the same reps. I just wasn't doing it live. I was visually watching it. Now, I'll touch on this. What you might be thinking, though, is you might be saying, well, yeah, I mean, I get that, but I like to watch YouTube videos. Guys, it's not created equal. And this is from a guy who has a how to smoke a brisket masterclass. Or, well, I have a how to smoke a brisket masterclass. What I meant to say is I have a how to trim a brisket masterclass. This is from a guy who would benefit from you watching my video. And I'm telling you, it's not the same. And why? Well, first, by the nature of video production, it's not the same, because if I take 5 minutes to trim a brisket, or let's say it takes me 15 minutes to trim a brisket. I've actually timed myself. If I'm really in the groove, I'm about a 5-minute brisket trim, which I don't know if that's fast or slow. I really don't. I just know if I'm in the groove, I'm about a 5-minute brisket trim. If I'm really just kind of taking my time, enjoying the process, about 10 minutes. Okay. If it takes me 10 minutes to trim a brisket and I'm doing a video teaching someone how to do it, you're not getting the full trim. You're getting portions of the trim by the nature of video production. Meaning I might say remove the decal. Okay, you'll see me take the decal out. But then when I go to tell you remove the topical fat cap down to 1/4 of an inch or whatever, I'm not going to record myself doing that the entire time. I'm going to tell you to do it, show you a few cuts, and then cut to it being done. We all know that. Well, what you missed out on in the time of me making a few slices and then it being done, what you missed out on is the most important pieces of the brisket trim visually, is seeing the angle of the knife, the curvature of where I'm taking my knife. That is the reps that you need. You need those reps. The restaurants have those reps because they're trimming hundreds of briskets daily, weekly. By recording yourself, you are getting every single cut, every stroke, every mistake you're getting. And if it takes you 40 minutes to trim a brisket, that's okay. That is totally fine. What I would urge you to do now, let me give you something practical, because I think I've hammered this point of record yourself in enough. Here's what I would tell you to do practically. I would tell you to adopt a brisket trim methodology. In my masterclass, I beat the point in that you have to adopt a process, a flow of how you trim. The biggest trim mistake that I see backyard guys make all the time, and I used to make this too, is you start chasing your brisket during the trim. You're chasing it. What do I mean by that? You'll take the decal out, and you'll flip it over, and you'll take some of the fat cap out, and then you're like, oh, here's a better example, because this is what I used to do. I used to watch a how to trim a brisket video, and then I pause it, and I go do what the person was saying, and then I do it, screw it up, and then go back to the video, and then listen to the next part, and then go back and do it, and probably screw that up too, and then I'm going back and forth and back and forth. Does that work? Yeah. However, what am I trying to say? When you record yourself, you get the ability to watch it from front to back. I already said that. But what else you get is you get the ability to not enable yourself. Sorry that took so long to get out. I lost my thought. It came back to me. That was the point I was trying to make, is that by watching the videos and going back and forth, you enable yourself. And you start to sow seeds of distrust in yourself. What you need, where you need to get when it comes to trimming brisket, is you need to get to a level of proficiency that is built on a foundation of self-trust. Meaning, I'm not saying this to try to brag. I hate that I even have to say that, but I get comments here and there where people say like, "Oh, Marcus thinks he's this or that or cocky or whatever." I really don't, and I'm trying to be vulnerable here and tell you guys, like, from the bottom of my heart. Anytime I talk about the smokers I own or whatever it is, I'm just saying that literally because it's a podcast. So I'm just going to preface that once. If you're new here and you're listening to me talk, just know that I really try my best to be humble. I don't care to be braggadocious at all. So, and if you're not new here, then you know my heart. Okay. What I was going to say before that disclaimer is the level of proficiency that I have trimming brisket is you could drop me in any environment, literally any environment. Give me a 12-inch slicer, a 7-inch boning knife, or an 8-inch, I don't remember the name of it. It's a certain kind of knife, and I really like it. It's flexible. Gosh darn. Victorinox makes it, I think. But anyways, give me an average sharp knife and a brisket. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. I don't need anything. I don't need to watch a video. I don't need anything. That's level 1. In addition to that, because this has happened to me before, this has literally happened. I have been asked on the spot in public while trimming, while cooking briskets. I have been asked to demonstrate a brisket trim. And then next thing I know, there's multiple people and now I'm teaching. I didn't know I was going to be teaching, but I'm teaching. I don't have my knife. I don't have my cutting board. I don't have anything. I'm using their knife, their equipment, and there's people, and I'm teaching. That's the next level of proficiency, is once you can do it, can you explain it? Can you teach it? Watching yourself trim a brisket in real time is doing both, in my opinion. It's doing both at the same time. Because what you're seeing is, here's the cut that I made. Did it work or did it not work? This is what's happening in your head. This is what you should be thinking. Did it work? Did it not work? If it did not work, why did it not work? And now what you're about to do is you're about to explain to yourself why that cut you just saw you make did not work. That's a form of teaching. That is a form of teaching. You're teaching yourself back onto your own mistakes. Why can you not do that with a YouTube video? Because on YouTube, you don't see the mistakes. You don't see them. What you see is the highlight reel, as it should be, because me making a video full of mistakes is not helping you. So I'm trying to drive the point home that the YouTube community as a whole, we are not wrong for showing you highlights. That's what a YouTube video, in my opinion, should be. Now, like in my masterclass, I scalped a brisket. Now, I didn't cut it out. I could have, but what I showed you was my little trick to fix a scalp like it never happened. Short of stuff like that, most mistakes I'm just going to cut out. Watch it live. Watch yourself live. Talk to yourself while you do it. Memorize every cut you make on that one video. Watch it and watch it and watch it. I am telling you, family, I'm telling you, you will get exponentially better at trimming brisket, because the where you will get eventually is where I'm at now, where if I were to close my eyes, I could, like I'll do it right now. Okay, I have a brisket. I see it in my head. It's in the cryovac. I turn it over, fat cap side down. I take my knife. I go across the decal. I open my cryovac up. I pull it out. I still put it fat cap down. Step number 1, I remove the decal out to flatten the brisket. Step number 2, I make sure that there's no fat on the bottom of the brisket, the decal side that's gross or ugly. I don't worry about silver skin. It is what it is. I take that stuff off. I flip it over. Now what I do is I remove the mohawk first. I take the mohawk off. On the mohawk side, I remove the what I call a leading line. I cut all the way down the mohawk side to open up that outer side of the brisket because I want to see how thick that fat cap is. I don't have to do this. I just got lost in doing that. But you get my point. I could literally run you through it. Step by step by step by step. I see it in my head. That's where you guys should get, and you can get there. You can get there. That's the beauty of this thing. You can get there. And I want you to. So, reps. Barbecue restaurants, they got the reps, guys. Equipment. So let's touch on equipment real quick. I find myself, when I do this podcast, wanting to say 1,000 times that a specific bullet point that I have should be its own podcast in and of itself. And I think that's why the last one ran so long. And that's probably why this one's going to run long. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour, but I don't know if I can do that. And if you guys don't want me to do that, then tell me. Nothing is more liberating than knowing that I can just put this mic to my mouth and just rip for as long as it takes to get the information out, knowing that people would watch it. So if that's you, tell me that, because that'll take a lot of freaking stress off trying to rush through all this stuff. But equipment should be its own podcast, but I will just make it a bullet point here. The other gap that restaurants have from Backyard Guys is the equipment. Guys, I mean, let's be honest. A Moberg smoker, 1,000-gallon Moberg, is a Ferrari of smoking apparatuses. It just is. Style Switch has like, how many? One, two, three, four, five. I think 5 Mobergs and a custom Moberg, a 101 sausage smoker. I don't know. I think Style Switch has like 6 smokers, 5 at the main location. I think it's on Lamar. And then their other location, they got more Moberg. So my point is like, just that inherently alone, guys, the increase in size from smokers makes a huge difference. Other professionals might disagree with me, and that's fine. I believe, based on my experience, that the bigger the smoker, the better it cooks. I believe that. Why do I believe that, and why am I qualified to say that? Well, gosh darn, sorry. For starters, I have a 1,000-gallon smoker. I, on my own time, have the ability and the liberty to test any idea that I want to. Any combination of tests that I want to run, I can run it on a 1,000-gallon. I have the ability to intimately learn 1,000-gallon smokers. Part of the reason I got it, some people, I ain't going to say names, but if you're watching this, you know who you are. Some people gave me crap for getting the 1,000-gallon. Oh, you just want to get it because you just want to show off, whatever. No, I'm not that vain. Maybe 25-year-old Marcus living in Miami, Florida with my wife at the time. Sure, maybe you could have clocked me for being a little materialistic. Current day Marcus, I don't care, guys. I could care less about showboating. I bought the 1,000-gallon. One, to have the ability to cook at that capacity should I ever need to. 2, I bought it because I wanted to learn that apparatus. I wanted to learn it. You got to understand, there's levels to the barbecue game. And if I'm going to be the guy making a YouTube channel called Meet and Greet where I'm teaching barbecue at some of the higher levels, I have to be able to look myself in the mirror and know that I know what I'm talking about. That I'm not a phony. What am I trying to say? I got to be able to trust my own self with the information that I give. And I got to a point in my barbecue career where I said to myself, if you were to put me at a 1,000-gallon smoker, I don't think I could trust myself running it like I could my 500-gallon. And for a long time, what I used to say is, I say this to my wife. Like, I would say, yeah, we built the 500. I have that. I'm good. Like, if you can smoke on a 500, I can smoke on a 1,000-gallon. I used to say that. And then I just got real with myself one day and I was like, no, that's not true. If I was at an event or I was at a festival and someone gave me a shovel and said, hey, brother, can you run this 1,000-gallon for a few hours while I get some shut-eye? I would feel fairly confident, just in my experience. But at the nuanced level that I like to know barbecue, I wouldn't have had that. So I got the 1,000-gallon and I've been learning it. I've been learning it extensively, deeply. I had the 500. I know that thing like the back of my hand. And then prior to all that, I had a backyard smoker. So what I'm trying to convey to you guys is that I'm qualified to make that statement out of my opinion because I have all the apparatuses. And I can tell you there is a slight increase in quality from backyard to 250 to 500 to 1,000-gallon. From there, then the game becomes, how do I bring consistency across all the smoking apparatuses that I have? So what I'm trying to say is that the equipment that they have just inherently, based on what I just said, gives them the advantage. Like guys, Cooper and team at Bar A, I was there. They had a Syntex, a mill scale, and an M&M rotisserie. Guys, do you understand that in the bar, that's like the barbecue equivalent of that is like, or the automotive equivalent of that would be saying that you went to Cooper's house and Cooper had a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, and a Rolls Royce. Lamborghini, Ferrari, and a Rolls Royce. Now, you on your own, you can pick and choose which one's which. They're all luxury, nice cars. So how does a very reliable full-wheel drive, all-wheel drive Toyota something or another, how does that compete with a Rolls Royce? Well, it doesn't really. Are they the same in essence? Well, yeah. They both got four wheels. You can both put them in drive and they drive. They're the same. They get you from point A to point B. They're the same in essence. But man, when nighttime falls on one of those bad boys, you got stars in the ceiling. You know what I mean? One of those bad boys, you got automatic high beams. You know, you got curtains on the window, that kind of thing. So I think what we need to do as we start to come to peace with, why is my barbecue not as good as the restaurants? Well, okay, they got the reps, they got the equipment. Now let's touch systems and processes. One of the biggest mistakes, one of the biggest mistakes that I see backyard guys making is centered around systems and processes. I cannot drill this point home enough. Let me change the tone of my voice. Let me pull this mic closer. Let me quit yelling because I want you to listen to what I'm saying. Let me take a chill pill. Matter of fact, let me wet my whistle. Espresso. Chase it with Diet Coke. All right. You're probably wondering, chase espresso with Diet Coke. I'm a weirdo. I'm a coffee lover. I drink a lot of espresso. I drink espresso all day. But a weird combination that I like is espresso with Coke. Coca-Cola. I digress. Okay. Family. You have got to stop changing your process every time you cook a brisket. It's hurting you. Now I know where you're coming from. And I'm only talking to the people that this is, if the shoe fits. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't do that. Well, good for you. Most people do. And I used to a lot. There's so much information on YouTube, specifically in the way of barbecue, that the inclination is to watch one video, listen to this guy, he says this. Okay. Then you go cook your brisket. And if you're being honest with yourself, you probably watched 5 videos before you cooked the brisket. So now you got 5 different takes. And now you're cooking your brisket and you're likely watching another video, maybe some of the same ones, maybe a different one, while you're cooking the brisket. So you're getting fed different data points the whole time. Now, I said this in my last podcast, and I'll say it now. Historical YouTube has been an echo chamber of information. And I'll make this disclaimer so that you guys are clear. When I talk about barbecue YouTube, I'm not bashing my fellow influencers because I consider those guys brothers and family. all of them. I'm not bashing those guys. When I talk about barbecue YouTube, I am speaking in current day, but about historical YouTube, the YouTube of old, like a decade ago. When you'd get on YouTube and everyone would tell you to cook a brisket to 203, and everyone would tell you to use clean smoke, and everyone would tell you to remove your membrane off your ribs, and everyone would tell you to use mustard as a binder, and everyone would tell you to use just kosher salt and 16 mesh ground black pepper, and everyone would tell you to, like, you get what I'm saying. I'm talking about that when I say barbecue YouTube. I'm not talking about today, because now you got so much information that's all differing from guys that know what they're talking about. But my point is, when you get on barbecue YouTube and you're trying to make your brisket and you're getting all this information, whether it's from me, whether it's from my brother Harry the Horse, which if you don't know Harry the Horse, please, for the love of God, go follow our brother. This dude has put in so many hours into this barbecue thing, learning it on his own, in addition to producing YouTube videos that no one asked him to make. He does it out of his own passion. So anyways, go follow him. Go subscribe to Harry. But whether it's him or whether it's Brad at Chud's or Yoder or anyone, we all have a little bit of different thing that we do. And so if you watch all of our videos individually and then you're like, great, let me go cook a brisket. Well, some things are going to be a little different. That's hurting you. What you need to do, what you have to do, is stop adjusting variables in the field first. Second, adopt a brisket process that you resonate with. It resonates with you. Whether it's Style Switch or, Aaron Franklin's Butcher Wrap. Whether it's Leroy and Lewis Foil Boat. Whether it's Bar A Barbecue's Cold Smoke. Whether it's Goldie's Beef Tallow and Foil, whatever the style of cook that you want, that you like, that resonates, pick it, and stop deviating. You got to stop deviating. Part of the gap that restaurants have from us backyard guys is that they're not out there deviating. They're not. To be honest, most barbecue restaurants have cooked it. Franklin's has cooked it relatively the same way for a really long time. What he'll do, though, is he'll go into the nuance and he'll tweak things within the nuance. What he's not doing is making massive foundational adjustments to his brisket cook. He's not. Those are cornerstones. Those are set in place. What he does is he goes in within the confines of the foundation and he figures out, okay, what can I move around that won't shake the whole house down, but we'll adjust it here and we'll adjust it there. That's the most that I would say, if I was your brisket coach, that's the most I would allow you to do. I said this on a live stream and I still believe it. I think the best thing you could do as a guy trying to get really good at brisket is the following. Record yourself trimming. Learn that. Let's say you know how to trim. Because I always say a brisket cook starts with the trim. If you botch the trim, you're not setting yourself up for success when it comes to the cook. So let's say you got the trim situated. Now we're in the cook. Pick a method. Okay? Follow that method for 20 individual brisket cooks. Don't change anything. And then on cook 21, make an adjustment. Now I know what you might be thinking. 20 individual, that's going to take me years. Maybe it does, guys. That's what folks miss about the era of barbecue that I started in versus what I call is the newer era, like COVID and to now is kind of the newer era. Folks are wanting to shortcut the time aspect of barbecue. Guys, this craft is not a craft you can shortcut around time-wise for the most part. Now, could you take time out of the equation in some instances? Well, yeah, you could with reps. You could do it with reps, meaning, like I'll give you an example, Amir with Redbird Barbecue. Bro's not been cooking barbecue for 20 years. Bro is one of the best pit masters on planet Earth. Undoubtedly. Amir and his family are crushing by every measurable statistic. To me, should I say this? I'm going to say it. I don't care. When it's all said and done, Amir will make my Mount Rushmore of pitmasters. And I have my own reasons for that. What Amir did was he got the reps in he went out with Johnny at Goldie's and them. And he got the reps in there. Started his restaurant, he's getting the reps in. Now, can he say, I've been barbecuing for 20 years? Well, no. But does he need to? Heck no. Because dude's got 20 years worth of, Amir's got 20 years worth of backyard guys cooking. And all in this time. So anyways, guys, it's the reps, it's the systems and the processes, and you cannot shortcut the time as a backyard guy. You just got to put in the time. And that's the point I was trying to make is I see a lot of backyard guys, they're just not willing to make peace with the fact that this might be a 5, 6, 7, 8 year craft. It might be a 10-year play for you. And that's fine. Just don't deviate off of the cornerstones. Well, how do you know what's a cornerstone? Well, you don't until you have the reps. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Give me a second. Let me think on that, and then we'll round that out. Let me think. 1 second. What was I saying? Systems, equipment, reps. I don't remember. I'll move on. Maybe it'll come back. The last one is probably the true gap for me. Is fire management. Fire management is put the equipment aside, put the reps aside, put all that stuff that I said aside. What it's really going to boil down to is the fire management. That is the true gap between a backyarder and a restaurant. Now, I said this earlier. I think the bigger the smoker, the better. Part of the reason is that it's a little bit easier to run a fire. So there's that. But the required experience when it comes to a proper brisket cook is rooted in the fire management. Now, when it comes to learning how to manage a fire, I'll say the following. First off, you have to come to terms with the importance of it. You have to come to terms with, you have to be able to say on your own that you are respecting just how important fire management is. Once you can respect it, you can start to do the due diligence to learn it. Now I have a fire management masterclass, and I'm going to say this with as much humility as I possibly can. I think it's one of the best fire management videos on the entire internet, period. It's free. It's on this channel. You can go watch it if you haven't seen it. Why am I saying that with as much humility as possible? I'm saying it because when I released that video, I told my wife, well, first off, I didn't want to do it to begin with. I think it was my first official video outside of the Smoker Build series. And I remember saying to my wife, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. She said, well, why don't you want to do it? And I said, well, there's so many how to manage a fire videos on YouTube that I don't want people to think that I'm just like regurgitating what's already existing. And I said, I'm a little worried because if I do it, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go way outside of the wire when it comes to this thing. I'm going to go so deep into it that I think no one's going to watch it, or like people are going to think that I'm just some weirdo guy. Because prior to that, I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't know that there were other guys like me out there. I just didn't know it. Now I know it, and now I'll rip a 2-hour podcast and just talk about fire management because I know that we've built the community together, so I can do this. I didn't know that then. I did it anyways. And the number one thing I told my wife when I did it is I said, babe, this video we can call this video, you and I, we can call it successful if I am able to make the fire management video that I wish existed when I first started barbecue. And if we get to the end of this and I watch your edit, because she edited it, Praise be to my wife. Praise be. I love that woman. You could thank her. I have one video where I said, drop in the comments and say, thank you, Mrs. Meet and Greet. Because, it was the how to trim a brisket video. Because I wasn't going to even do it. But she was like, you sit here in front of this camera and you trim that brisket. And I did. She did that with the fire management. But I'm saying she did all the editing early on in the channel. And so she created an environment where all I needed to do was just show up and just send it. I didn't show up with the script. I didn't have nothing. That video is just me literally off my dome talking. We filmed for like 4 hours. The video that you see, she edited it. And I told her, if we can't get to the end of that and I watch it from front to back, and if I don't look you in the pearls and say, I would have loved to have this when I started, we don't post it. I've never told anybody this. The first video we did was exactly the opposite of that. We filmed for days, many hours of that fire management video. We trashed the whole thing because I was being too reserved. I was trying to do the whole clickbait title, big description, clickbait title, big fancy thumbnail, quick cuts and the sound effects and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't want this crap. That's what I told her. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want it. I wouldn't want it then. I don't want it now. A couple weeks later, we refilmed it and I sent it. Loved it. What's my point? Guys, the fire management video is so important and foundational to the barbecue process that if you don't spend the time to learn it, you will never cook the type of barbecue that you want to cook. It's impossible. It's impossible. Fire management to me is the true separator to me. I've also not really said this publicly, not like it's some crazy statement. Let me rephrase that. I've not said this out loud, but I've believed it inside. I can't call someone a pitmaster, including myself, until I personally believe that they have fire management dialed undoubtedly from cooker to cooker. That to me is pitmaster. Now, you might disagree with that. That's fine. But for me, if you can't, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that because I'm going to get a bunch of flack and people are going to call me grouchy and tell me I'm complaining and all that. And I'm not. I'm just saying, if you're not confident in your fire management, don't call yourself a pitmaster. That's my point. Let's move on. Rounding out basically what we're talking about today. I do have a couple more topics that I'll breeze through that are little sticky topics, but we'll round out why your barbecue is not as good as restaurants, and that's post-cook. It's post-cook. Before we touch on that, let's summarize everything we said so we're all on the same page. So why is our barbecue not as good as restaurants? First, it's the reps. It's just the reps. It's the equipment. It's the systems and the processes that they follow. It's the lack of variable manipulation on behalf of the restaurants, meaning they're not, when they formulate their foundational way of running the operation, very rarely are they deviating from it. Very rarely. And if they do deviate, it's got to be a net benefit to the operation or the quality of the product. It's got to be a net tangible. If it's not, they don't do it. Us backyard guys, we're like, I'm not going to name things because then people are going to think I'm speaking about specific people, and I'm not. I'm just saying, if you've been around this barbecue thing long enough, then you could probably think of all of the different variables that have been introduced into cooking brisket. And if you're trying to rip them all at the same time, or you're trying to send a bunch of them all throughout your cooks, there is no consistency. Oh my, by the grace of God, you guys just saw in real time what it's like to have this brain, which is not easy to manage. I just remembered the thing that I wanted to say like 30 minutes ago. Let me say it before I forget. Oh my God, I just forgot. Wow. Am I going to keep that in there? I might keep that in so you guys can get a real look. Oh, wait a second. That's crazy. What was I going to, it was just there. Oh, there it is. Okay. Temp log. I just have to throw the phrase out there. Wow. Thank you for bearing with me, friends and family, while we just went through whatever the heck that was. A temp log. This is in my, if you're not doing this and you want to cook better barbecue, you have to do this. Okay? Listen. Here we go. One of the biggest mistakes I see guys make that is keeping them from closing the gap between restaurant quality and backyard quality is the lack of knowledge behind what's happening with their temperatures over a prolonged period of time. Let me say that again. It's the lack of knowledge behind what's happening with their temperatures over a prolonged period of time. What I mean by that is when I get a new smoker, or I got my 1,000-gallon and I'm making brisket, not only do I need to learn how the 1,000-gallon works, that means draw, airflow, hot spots, all that stuff. In addition to that, temp consistency. The way that I do that is by an hour temp log. Now, you've probably heard this. This isn't revolutionary, but the easiest things are the things that are the hardest to do because they're so easy and no one ever does them. Every hour, at the top of the hour, write down the temperature of your fire. Every time you go to your fire within that hour to manipulate it, write down what you did at maximum. At minimum, write down the rough amount of logs that you put on that fire during that hour. So on my 1,000-gallon, if in 1 hour time block, I go out there 4 times, every 25 minutes or so. No, that math made no sense. I go out there 4 times within the hour. Every time I go out there, I am writing down what it is that I did when I went out there. If I went out there to check it, I write temp check, did nothing. If I went out there and I added 2 logs, I wrote added 2 logs, dash, and then what I did with the fire. Did I readjust the fire? Did I move some logs around? Did I break the coal bed down? Was the coal bed already fully combusted? Whatever. I make little notes for myself within that hour time block. Now, it takes a little bit more work to do that, and you don't have to do that every time. But guys, if you do a temp log at least one time, once the cook is over, wait a day, wait 2 days, whatever. Let yourself settle down, settle in. You can go back and you can look at your averages. Barbecue is a game of averages. If I tell you to cook a brisket for 12 hours at 275 and you're running a fire, you're likely not keeping the fire at 275 straight the entire time. It's going to be higher, it's going to be lower. What we want is to average out our temps at the top of the hour. If you wanted to really get granular, you would write your temps every half hour, potentially, which I've done. I've written my temps every time I've gone to check my fire, which is 4 times within the hour. That is like, you really want to learn a smoker. And then what you can do is you can log that out. And if you really wanted to get granular, you could write out what you did with your smokestack if you're manipulating the smokestack, and what you did with your firebox door, whether you left it 1/2 inch open, 1/4 inch open. You get what I'm saying? You can start to log these things out. I'm telling you guys, if you're still listening to this podcast, it means that you really want to get good at this barbecue thing. Take it from me with unlimited humility. You are looking at a guy who for 15 years just fumbled his way through this thing. And I don't wear that as a badge of honor. It actually pisses me off. It really, really irks me to know that it took me so long to figure this thing out. And I could talk about why that is, but I was hard-headed. I was constantly chasing the shiny object. I was constantly playing around. I don't know if I could be where I'm at today without all that, but maybe I could have. But what I do know is that I'm not trying to lead you guys astray. What other purpose would I have for saying any of this stuff, for sitting here for an hour, however long, if it wasn't of benefit to you? So listen to me, please. Chart your temperatures one time, just one time, one cook. Record yourself trimming a brisket one time, please. And if you can't bring yourself to do either of those, then I don't know. Maybe you're just a hobbyist, which is also cool. You know, that's cool too. I was gonna say maybe you don't take this thing serious enough, but that's not true. That's not a true statement. Maybe it's just not that serious to you. But if it is serious to you, you should do that. I hope it's been 55 minutes. I hope that was helpful, or at minimum, I hope that was insightful. I think that was a fun topic. I have more topics, but that was the main topic that I wanted to touch on. Now let's round out that topic with post-cook. So what separates restaurants from backyard is everything I just said. And then once the brisket's done, then what? Then what is the hot holding briskets. Guys, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to trust me. You don't have to like me. It is what it is. I mean, I like you. You don't have to like me. But just know this. I gain nothing at all from telling you the following. I gain nothing. It's just my opinion. So here's what I'll say. A few years ago, we do an annual 4th of July bash. And it got so big that this was the year that I finished my 500-gallon smoker. So I was like, I told everyone, invite everyone. I'm just going to cook all the meat. I mean, I was gung-ho. So we invited everyone. And then what ended up happening is we had like over 100 RSVPs. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have we done? So historically, I would rest my brisket specifically in coolers or like the oven. But I wouldn't hot hold in the oven because that was not information I had. I would like get the oven really hot and then let it stay like that for a while and then turn it off and then put my brisket in there and leave it in there for a few hours. You know, I'd rest it like that. Or I'd pull my brisket off, wrap it in my wife's favorite towels and then throw it in a cooler. The day my barbecue changed forever was the day we did that 4th of July bash, or really that week, because I was buying a bunch of meat and I just realized, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to hold all this meat. Now in my head, I wasn't trying to do a hot hold like how I teach it now. I was just trying to literally put the meat somewhere long enough that would allow me to serve it all. I had already made peace with the fact that I was going to have to stay up for literally 48 hours almost straight in order to cook all this and then serve it on the day of, until it hit me. And actually what hit me was, by the grace of God, I watched I think it was a video. Remember that really old Aaron Franklin video that I think Munchies did? I think it was Munchies or something like that. Or was it gosh darn, what was the name of that channel? I don't remember the name of it. It's a big channel. They did like a day in the life with at Aaron Franklin's. This is an old video. And I was just watching that, just like getting in the mood, you know, I'm like hyping myself up, gonna freaking do this thing. And in the video, I saw them pull a brisket out of the warmer and do like a lightning bolt. It was just like, bam, right into my head. I was like, oh my gosh, duh. The barbecue restaurants, they're putting their food in these warmers. And I go down a rabbit hole of like warmers. I'm reaching out to people. I'm trying to figure out this warmer thing. And in short, to bring this home, I rented a warmer. I served a bunch of brisket. And I remember in real time, I remember being on the chopping block, slicing these briskets live, Texas barbecue style. I just remember I'd pull a brisket out of the butcher paper, I'd drop it on the butcher block, and I didn't have the time to marvel at it because I'm serving stuff off the line, but I just remember I'm looking at these slices going off the platter down the line, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are the best briskets I've ever made. I mean, I was like, I did it. I literally made restaurant quality brisket. I did it. But I didn't know how. I didn't at the time. It didn't compute. We clean up, we do 4th of July, we celebrate, whatever, next day we're cleaning up. And the whole time I'm cleaning, I'm just like, how did I make those briskets like that? And I'm mad at myself because I didn't do what I just told you. I didn't temp log anything because I'm running at 1,000,000 miles an hour trying to feed 100 people solo. I didn't temp log. I didn't record. I didn't have any data to go back to. And then it dawned on me. It just hit me. I was like, oh my gosh. I think the warmer did something to that brisket. I think it did something. And so I went on a tear trying to figure out testing. I since got a warmer, and then I started testing a bunch of stuff, and I came to the following conclusion. This is my conclusion. Other professionals might not agree. This is just for me. And I'll say this. Why does hot holding brisket make better barbecue? Well, I'll tell you. When you cook a brisket, let's say for 12 to 15 hours, that brisket's getting hammered. I mean, it's getting, guys, 275 to 300 degrees is hot. And that brisket is just in there getting hammered the entire time. That meat, to cook a brisket right, it starts raw. It gets really tight and really hard and rubbery, and then it dissipates out. When it dissipates, that's when it gets nice and tender in the brisket that we all know and love. Well, that dissipation is caused in the cook because you've cooked it to, well, technically beyond done. 195, 200, 205, that's technically beyond done, but that's where we get those tender slices. But you guys know that jiggle that you get? I mean, you can get the jiggle if you cook it at 203. I mean, if you cook it to 203, immediately pull the brisket off and put it on a butcher block, you get a little jiggle. But that jiggle that I'm talking about, that comes from what I call the second dissipation, which is more a redistribution of the intermuscular fat, plus allowing the brisket to really figure out where it wants to settle. It dissipates in the cook, it gets tender. Stick it in a warmer at 140 degrees and give it another 12 hours. My gosh, that brisket is just it's gonna rest. It's gonna sleep. It's gonna relax. Those juices and that fat, it's gonna redistribute. You get more even fat distribution through the inside of the brisket, and then most of all, it's just going to get really delicate in there. It's not going to continue to cook. It's going to essentially, I was going to say it's going to freeze it in time, but that would be the opposite of a warm hold. It's just going to hold it right where it's at, right at done. Now, if you guys want me to do a podcast separate solely on the process of hot holding, let me know. I would be happy to rip for however long and just give you guys what I've learned over the years hot holding. And that's when to pull a brisket, at what temperatures can you put briskets in there, how long are we holding them, what temperature is the warmer in relation to the internal temp of the brisket, all that stuff we can go into. But what I will say is that the gap, again, we're talking about this gap between our backyard barbecue and the restaurants, is that something special is happening in the warmers. And you might hear people that run restaurants tell you like, we don't need a warmer. Like the only reason that we use warmers is because of the nature of the timing of how we're cooking, which is totally true. The other benefit of a warmer, which I don't have time to go into, is it will change your barbecue experience. If you've never had the luxury, and when I say luxury, it is a luxury to be able to cook one day, go to sleep, cook, shower, go to sleep, wake up, and the day of service has no cooking at all, that is a luxury, guys. And you deserve to experience that luxury. So I think you should get a warmer. But you'll hear some guys will say, like, I don't think the warmer is necessary. It may be. I'm not saying I'm totally right. I'm just saying I've tested it all kinds of ways. There's a benefit I have found to letting the brisket take a deep breath and relax. So warmers. If you want me to do a video on how to get the same result if you don't specifically have a warmer, and then also all the other things about warmers, let me know. I'll do that. How are we doing on time? Okay, we're at an hour. We're not bad. Last one was almost 2 hours. This one won't be nearly as long because we're almost done. But yeah. So anyways, let me know if you want me to do a video all about warmers, and we'll spool the pot up. We'll do it. If you're curious about warmers, this is a good time to buy one because it's Christmas and it's time. Dang it. Gosh darn it. I was trying not to date this video. I hate doing that. It just irks me when I date my videos. I dated my last one. It was done and posted on Thanksgiving or around Thanksgiving. Now it's Christmas time. Whatever. It is what it is. It's Christmas time, guys. So it's a good reason to go buy yourself something. I have 2 videos on my channel. If you want to wet your palate, if you're like, Marcus, we want the warmer video now, go wet your palate on my other 2 videos. I talk about a lot of this stuff, but I also walk you through my residential warmer, which Vever, the company, they sent to me. It's a Chinese made product, which if you're in the States, you know the connotation that has, being Chinese made. But what I'll say is that what you don't have an American made, you kind of make up in the price, I guess. So, you're not spending thousands of dollars on a warmer. And from what I've seen so far, it's pretty good quality. The only issue with that is it's out of stock. So what I'll do is in the description, I'll put a link to a warmer that if my Vever broke today, I'll put a link to what it is that I would buy. Like whatever it would buy if my residential one broke, I'll just drop that link. If you want it, snag it. I got a video on that, and then I got a video on my residential 6-foot warmer or my commercial 6-foot warmer as well. So there's that. Warmers. All in all, guys, why is your barbecue not as good as the restaurants yet? Because of everything we just ran through. Reps. You got to get the reps. We talked on that. The equipment. While not all of us can go out and buy Ferraris, there's always room to up your equipment. I don't care what your money situation is. I don't care what your housing situation is. I don't care about any of that, because I am telling you from experience, there's always room. It might not be today. It might not be next year. It might not be in 5 years. Guys, I have dreamed of owning a 500-gallon smoker for 10 years. And I know that because 9 years, I got a little thing on Facebook from 9 years ago where I posted a video of a really dilapidated 500-gallon smoker. And I basically was like, I dream of owning this. I would have never thought it was possible. Now I have that and more. So a lot can happen. Just be patient, but work with what you have equipment-wise. Systems and processes. Find a system and a process that works for you. Battle test it. Do not go out into the field and start tweaking a bunch of stuff because us YouTubers told you to do it. No, watch the content, enjoy the content, whatever you think you want to test out, save that for later. Because remember, you got 20 brisket cooks to do. You got 20 brisket cooks to do. If I'm your brisket coach, I'll tell you this: what's the word I'm looking for? The only pass I'll give you, if you don't want to cook 20 briskets, is cook 5. Film yourself trimming all 5, and then chart the 5 brisket cooks, and then go change something there. And then fire management, guys. I can't hound fire management enough. It is, if you don't have that down pat, then you're leaving some juice on the bone. No. You're leaving meat on the bone. There's still some juice you can squeeze out of that thing. So learn the fire management, and then warmers. Guys, warmers it changed the way that it changed my barbecue. It just did. It changed the entire experience. So if you want a video on that, let me know. We'll dive into it. Now, there's 2 other topics I'll spend the rest of this podcast talking about. They are viewer questions. And the last one, if you remember the last pod, at the end, I did viewer questions. It was super fun. I just kind of spun through a bunch of viewer questions. If you don't follow me on Instagram, It's the same handle you see here on YouTube. It's Meet and Greet Barbecue. Go over there, follow me there. I'm trying to get to 2,000 followers, which is sad that you can have 30,000 people follow you on one platform and then 2,000 people on another. But I understand, not everyone's on Instagram, but I'm telling you that because on Instagram, I put on my stories, I do a poll a lot of times. Or not a poll, I'm sorry. Gosh darn, what do you call that thing? I do one of those question things where you can submit a question and I'll answer the question in my Instagram story. And then in that, I'll pull out questions and I'll answer those live when I do live streams. Here's the catch with live streams. 97% of the live streams I've done, I've deleted. So you have to follow me on Instagram, send a question in there. I pull those questions out. I go over to YouTube Live. I live stream it and then I pull it down. However, now that we're doing podcasts, I am answering some of those questions. So here are two of the questions. One question was from a brother who supported me for a long time. He sent me a DM and he said, "Hey bro, I am wanting to buy a smoker." I don't have it pulled up, so I'm going off my memory. I have the topics written down, but I don't have the question itself. It says, my topic says elbow versus collector, because he was asking, what's better, an elbow versus a collector? Now, as I've said through this whole entire podcast, this could be its own podcast. So I guess I should just make a blanket statement and say, out of all these things that I wasn't able to go deep on, let me know if you want me to, and I can, but I'll say this. Elbow versus collector. I'll say I'm uniquely qualified to touch on this because I built a 500-gallon smoker and I built it with a collector. Prior to building that smoker, I did what I would argue is some of the deepest research one could do on this topic. I would be hard pressed outside of pit builders themselves. I would be hard pressed to find another person who went as far as I did to get the information. So I'm just telling you that to give you a vote of confidence that I'm not making this up. Now, part of my research was not just anecdotal evidence through what I was able to aggregate off the internet, but I went as far as to reach out to pitmasters, some of which were former pitmasters at Franklin's. And I was able to contact them and talk with them about cooking on collectors and their take on collectors. I'm not going to name any names, but just know I went as far as to talk to guys that worked at Franklin's. Why is Franklin's relevant? Some people say, there's a term, a Franklin style pit. Some people credit Franklin to being the one to develop the collector as we know it. Do I want to get into that on this podcast? No, because the last one, like I said, is a little spicy. I'll stay out of that argument. You guys can let me know in the comments who you think is responsible for that. I'll leave it at that. I'll just say as an objective statement, it's a commonly used term, a Franklin style pit. That's the collector. Now, there's the elbow, the 90-degree elbow. Why am I qualified to talk about that? Most people don't know this, but I built that 500-gallon smoker with a collector. I ran that for years. I learned that unit intimately. And then I went to Bar A Barbecue, spent some time around the Syntex, and I watched how the Syntex ran, and it blew my mind. And the elbow blew my mind. The draw, the bark, the convection, I was like, wow. And I didn't really like the look of an elbow anyways. So maybe that had a little bit to do with it. But I'm telling you that I'm not biased because I didn't really like the aesthetic of the elbow initially. So I didn't have a reason to switch because I liked the way my collector looked until I started to get around these elbow smokers and I started to realize these are just simply running more powerfully than my 500-gallon with the collector. Now, could it be user error? Could it be the way that I built it? For sure, maybe. But I went from Bar A's to style switch. And as I've said in this podcast and the last one and many other times, I was there many days looking at the smokers. I was blown away, guys. I was blown away by the sheer efficiency of those Moberg pits. The draw mixed with the convection, mixed with the bark was, and when I say mixed with the bark, I mean the color and the way that it was setting bark. It was just, man, it was just, yeah, it was blowing me away. That's the most I could say. And the whole time I was thinking to myself, I'm like, gosh darn it. Why is my 500 not this efficient, not this powerful? And for a while I was like, well, maybe it's just the nature of a 1,000-gallon versus a 500-gallon smoker. Time passed, and what I'm trying to tell you is that I converted my collector to an elbow, the same apparatus. I converted the 500-gallon collector to an elbow. Everything else was the same, created equal. Firebox the same. I didn't change anything. Just switched out the collector for the elbow. I even kept the smokestack that set on top of the collector. I cut that off and put that on the elbow. So it's all the same. The only thing that might be a little different is the net height. I think the elbow pushed the stack out a little higher, but it's not enough to make a difference because the stack itself is still the same net height. It's just the collector's a little higher, if that makes sense. Anyways, the first fire I ran in it, the first fire, everything was different. How could I tell it was different? Well, because I've ran hundreds and probably thousands of hours of fires with the collector on that same pit, lit that first fire, and it started zipping through to the point where I was like, I might need to close my stack down a little bit. Close the stack down, it was still zipping through. It was so powerful. I had to cut off about a foot of that smokestack. It was just drawing too much. Now, I came to the conclusion that here are the main two differences between the two. On a collector, the reason that I opted for it initially was because all the data and conversations suggest that it's a little bit of a calmer, more even, front to back, left to right, more even across the grate cooking process. It just cooks calmer and more evenly and less hot spots. Now, I believe with all smokers, there's going to be some degree of a hotspot somewhere. I believe that. You just have to learn how to cook with the hotspot. Use it to your advantage. Now, what I traded in power, I lost in that calmness. But what I got with the elbow was a smoker that I could far better manipulate. I could better manipulate it because it had more draw, it had more airflow. Now, the hot spots on my smoker now, they're more prevalent because of just what I talked about, the power. The hot spots are hot. And you mess around and burn some stuff there if you're not paying attention. But the beauty of, larger smokers is that a lot of this stuff you can control at the firebox side. But before anything, you can control hotspots in the smoker from the firebox if you know how to build a proper fire, if you know what to do with your smokestack. There were days, guys, on my 500-gallon with the collector that I couldn't even close the stack down really because it just wasn't drawing enough. Now, I didn't have a bunch of back pressure, which is, again, topic for a different day, but I didn't have a bunch of back pressure, which would tell me that my smokestack is too hot, too tall. I didn't have that. It just didn't have that thrust I was looking for. Slap that elbow on there, that thing eats. Got the 1,000-gallon that has an elbow, that thing's a monster. It's a monster. So I think as I stand right now, if I had to tell someone, do the following. Semi-insulated or fully insulated firebox. If you're getting it built, go longer on the firebox. Make it longer than you think. And go elbow on 90-degree, long radius elbow on your smokestack side. And you will be a very, very happy camper. All right. Let's touch on this last question because this brother sent me, he commented on the podcast and told me I skipped. Oh, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said I skipped over this topic or I left it out or something like that. And I didn't skip over it. I didn't leave it out. I just didn't want to talk about it then. But I'll talk about it now. The question he sent to my Instagram when I did the Instagram story, which if you're watching this, brother, thank you thank you for the support, bro. I appreciate you. And thank you for interacting and all the good stuff. I didn't skip anything over, big dog. I just didn't want to talk about it then. And I'll talk about it now. And what he asks is barbecue whitewashed? Is barbecue whitewashed? And that is an interesting topic. And I know that that's not relevant to some people, and some of you guys might jump off of this podcast at this point, because anytime you bring race or politics into any discussion, things get heated. And so I don't endeavor to talk about race or politics on this channel really ever. It's just not what the channel's about. It's just not what I do. However, I will touch on this because I understand where he's coming from, and it's an interesting question, and I have some opinions on it as a black guy. So let's say this. As a black dude whose family grew up so on my mom's side, her entire family grew up in the South, Alabama, the South. My grandmother's father owned a farm. My grandmother's father, which my grandmother's name is Mama Ada, so I'm just going to call her Mama Ada. I've done videos about Mama Ada before. She's a firecracker out of the South. She's not with us anymore. Rest in peace to Mama Ada. Her dad, we called him Granddaddy. Granddaddy owned a farm, and he owned a bunch of cattle on a farm. And Granddaddy was one of the first African Americans in Alabama at the time to own land how he did, to the point where the police, and this is crazy, the police of the time and members of the KKK came to their farm in the middle of the night. My grandmother told me this story, and attempted to light their barn on fire. And what was in the barn? All the crop that they had harvested to sell for profit. So I am only speaking about this because I love history, 1. I love barbecue history, 2. And my family we got some history when it comes to the black experience, if you will. My dad's family, my pops was from Philly, so Philadelphia. So it's like two bookends of an African American experience geographically. And so I'm telling you this, my mom's side of the family, Southern, whatever, my dad's side of the family, Philly. Okay. Now, I grew up in Missouri. I grew up in Missouri, not too far from Kansas City. Now, when it comes to Kansas City barbecue, you would be remiss to leave out Mr. Henry Perry. I'm not going to spend time to tell you guys about Henry Perry. You go do the research. What people don't realize about barbecue history, and this is a really long way of trying to answer this question because, like everything I do, I don't have a script and I barely have notes. I just have an outline to tell me what to talk about, and then I'm going off my head. So, guys, is barbecue whitewashed today? I don't know if I can answer that directly. I'm just going to present you guys some barbecue history, and then I want you guys to let me know if you care about it. I'll say this. Without African Americans, without black folk, you almost don't have barbecue. Almost. Maybe not barbecue exactly how we know it today. But slaves, so guys, understand this. Slaves were almost, I'm going to say it. Slaves were one of the original pit masters before that was a thing. Why? Because barbecue, the act of barbecuing, wasn't a luxury job. It was literally a slave job. It was, we have meat. We don't want to slave over fires or coals for a long time. Here, slave, cook the hog, cook the meat. So by nature, the slave started to cultivate this barbecue thing. They started to build their own systems and processes to cooking cuts of meat that are difficult to cook. Now, I know a lot of you guys, I know a lot of folks are going to listen to this and try to give me a history lesson on barbecue in the comments. Let me tell you this, spare me. I'm not all knowing, but I know a lot of it. In saying that, this is not me trying to give you a history lesson on all of barbecue, how it became to be, especially not how Texas barbecue became to be. I'm just telling you that some of the first people on planet Earth cooking barbecue like how we kind of know it were slaves. Now, once slaves were emancipated, slave owners realized, dang, we really like that barbecue thing. And well, these slaves are free. So these pit masters became a hot commodity. They were actually sought after. A lot of these slaves were actually brought in as, I hate to say it, they were still slaves, but not really. They were free, but it was a little bit too fresh. So they were kind of like an on-staff employee, if you will, for a lot of these wealthy folks of the time, cooking barbecue. And when you start to go generation after generation from those slaves, you start to track it back, or you start to track it forward closer to us, you start to see the development of barbecue and what it is today. Now, what I'll say is barbecue whitewashed? I'm not going to yet answer that exactly because I want to continue to lay the foundation. But remember, that's the question. Is barbecue whitewashed? So knowing that African Americans were some of the original folks in America to do this live fire cooking thing in that way, has that history been overshadowed? Have they, and by they I mean the slaves at the time, been cooking the barbecue, been a little bit forgotten? I think, but that's history as a whole. That's history as a whole. Now, I'll answer the question. I don't think that barbecue has been totally whitewashed as a whole. Do I think that we have forgotten a little bit of the history and who was in the history? A little bit. But I have a saying. I don't actually call it whitewash. I call it the Uncle Nearest effect, is what I call it. And I hope I don't lose a lot of you guys in saying this, but I'm just speaking from the heart. We're having a family conversation. I call it the Uncle Nearest effect, where I don't know if you know the story of Uncle Nearest, but the history goes, Uncle Nearest distilled bourbon initially and then taught it to the Jack Daniels family. And then the Jack Daniels family, well, do I need to explain to you the Jack Daniels family? Probably not. Now, let me ask you this. How many times have you gone to a bar and asked for a whiskey Coke and they say, well, what do you want? Or how many times have you gone to a bar and ordered a Jack and Coke? Probably a lot. How many times has a bartender asked you, do you want Uncle Nearest? Never. Now, if the history is true and Uncle Nearest really did teach that, why is the guy who taught it, why is Mr. Miyagi why is he not as big as, I don't remember the freaking Karate Kid's name, but you get what I'm saying? Why is the Jedi Master, why has he been forgotten? Well, it's the Uncle Nearest effect. It's just time and people and history and in a lot of things, the folks who lay the foundation, they tend to be forgotten. So I don't know is my answer. I don't know. I just gave you my little history synopsis on barbecue. Again, like I've been saying, I could do a 5-hour podcast on the history of barbecue and how we got here today. Is barbecue whitewash? I do not know. Do I know that there's a lot of not black people in barbecue right now? Yeah. Do I know more white people in modern barbecue than I do black people? Yes. Is that my fault? I don't know. What I do know is that in any culture, this is my belief, in any culture, the onus to preserve the culture is on the people of the culture. I believe that. You call me wrong if you want. It is what it is. For example, I smoke cigars. I love cigars. Cigars is a historically South American cultural thing. Historically. Cuba, for example. So much history in Cuba. We have done, and by we, I mean the cigar community as a whole, we have done such a good job at preserving the history of tobacco. It is not lost on us who the forefathers of tobacco were. It's not lost on us. And we honor, we pay homage to those people. Every time we enjoy the product, we as cigar smokers believe that it is paying homage to all the people that came before. My question back to you guys as a community is, do we feel like that's happening in barbecue? Or is barbecue now just so short-sighted isn't the right word, but so nearsighted, so recent that the folks that we're paying homage to are only going back as far as John Miller or, you know, maybe the generation before him. That's as far back as we go, and maybe not even that far. Maybe we go as far back as to who won Texas Monthly 4 years ago. I don't know. You guys tell me. I will say this, though. The number one barbecue spot right now currently owned and operated by a minority. Hispanic. The Pope. A legend. A legend. So, is it whitewashed? I don't know. Buddy on the throne right now is statistically a minority. So, that's my 2 cents. I'm not going to get into politics or race debates, or I'm not going to say I'm not going to get into religion, because if the good Lord tells me to say something, I'm going to say it, because I can't say no to the good Lord. But I would prefer to keep this barbecue oriented. However, to this point, to my brother's point, this is barbecue oriented, because it's the history of barbecue. I wrote some names down that I want you guys to look into when it comes to African Americans and barbecue. If you care about this thing, I got some names for you, and I got them geographically located. Henry Perry, KC. Charlie Payne, Tennessee. Mary John, South Carolina. And then there's a family. They're the Hargrove family in Texas. So look them up. And then there's another family. This is the lineage of the family. North Carolina would be Ed Mitchell's family. So, guys, that's the pod. What are we at? An hour and a half. That's the pod. I had fun on this one. I don't have much to round this out with, because when you've talked for an hour and a half, there's no way that I could round this out while bringing a full circle back to this thing. So the only thing that I will say is, I mean this. Please, 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 I am begging you. If you want me to continue to do these, I will. I will sit down and I'll do these, however long they are. But you got to interact. If you don't want to interact, I understand that. I'm not going to force you to do that. But if there's no interaction, then I can't justify sitting down and doing the next podcast. So you guys showed out on the last one. Drop in this one. I don't need a whole novel or anything. Just drop in as you're listening to it. Well, I guess we're at the end now, but drop in. You don't have to write a whole novel. You don't have to say anything crazy, but if you appreciate the pod, let me know, and drop some topics you want me to touch on, and we'll add it to the next one if and when we do another one. As always, Big Frizz, meet and greet. Over and out.